What we found, to our absolute shock, is they performed exactly the same. Yeah, we've known since the 1960s through George Cahill work at Harvard Medical School that if you put people on a fast, it takes over 3 weeks. So let's put these athletes, we're going to take middle-aged runners who are very high levels of fitness. They're running over 50, at least 50 kilometers per week. Many of them were competing in running events and were lean, body weight, like the epitome of health in athletics. And we're going to put them on a ketogenic diet for 4 weeks, Nick, okay, at least 4 weeks in duration, and compare the performance within the same person while controlling their calories, their activity, their body weight. We controlled all these key variables because those variables all influence performance. But a lot of these prior studies that had shown changes in performance with diet, they weren't controlling those. And so we did a randomized controlled trial controlling all those key variables within the same person, meaning that we're controlling their genetics and their environment at the same time. And we asked these individuals to stick to a diet for 4 weeks, take time off all diets, and then go back on the other diet after that change. And so we're really comparing high versus very low carbohydrate ketogenic diets while they had adapted to the diet for sufficiently long. And what we found is that when we asked them to do 6 by 800 meter sprints, so that's a very intense form of sustained aerobic exercise. And on top of that, a 1 mile time trial. So we tested these both independently on each diet.
Yeah.
Because
not only is that intense exercise, but it's very measurable. Like you can pick up 2 or 3 or 4 second differences. You can pick up even small differences in performance.
And obviously the difference between first and second place in a 1 mile time trial is usually 1 to 2 to 3 seconds max. And this is the type of intensity we would expect based on everything we've been taught in the textbooks from exercise science and exercise physiology. You would need carbohydrates to perform.
Yeah.
So this is really the litmus.
Yeah, the strong prediction here from most people would have been, even if there's not a night and day difference, that you would expect, the people on the high carbohydrate diet doing this type of high intensity athletic performance to do better, even if that just means the 1 or 2 or 3 second difference. And for such an athlete, that's big because, as you said, that's the difference between winning and coming in second or third.
Absolutely nailed it. And what we found, to our absolute shock, is they performed exactly the same. There was no difference in performance when you had carbohydrates in full abundance or in their near absence, as long as you adapted to the diet for sufficiently long. And when we were looking at how were they fueling that performance, because all the exercise textbooks would say you don't have enough carbohydrates to perform and sustain that performance. When we actually assess the type of fuel they're utilizing at these very high intensities, over 85% of their VO2 max. So when fat use was theoretically, based on these textbooks, to be near 0% of the fuel use during this exercise, these athletes were burning record levels of fat during exercise. So over 1.5 grams per hour on average. And we actually had some individuals exceeding 2 grams, sorry, not 2 grams per hour, 2 grams per minute in these athletes, absurdly high levels, the highest ever levels of fat oxidation ever recorded. And what this showed us is that all these assumptions we had since the 1960s, that carbohydrates were essential to performance and that you needed carbs to perform, even at the highest intensities, never took into account that that isn't actually always the case. When you actually put that to the test and you put people on these ketogenic diets, absence in carbohydrates, nearly absence in carbohydrate, they're relying on fat as a fuel. And then you push them to high intensities. When you don't just assume, you actually test it. The test did not come up to meet the hypothetical assumptions that these textbooks would tell us would come true. And so that totally changed the entire thinking by our group around these diets and performance.